testimony of all of you. I'm going to recognize Senator Johnson now for his round of questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, let me say, anybody who's watched the social media, the documentaries, The Social Dilemma and The Creepy Line, I think has to understand that this can do great harm, particularly to children. I think as a result, I think our first line of defense is with parents. I think that they need to really do everything they can to make sure their children aren't affected by this in a negative fashion. Ms. Franks, you made, or Professor Franks, you made the comment that it seems like, from your standpoint, most of the bad content leans toward conservative and that type of misinformation. I would just ask you, what is your assessment in terms of the leadership, the people who work in these companies? How do they lean politically in your assessment?
I'm not sure that it's relevant. I think I'm not sure that is relevant. The particular individual leanings of employees.
Okay, others can determine what's a relevant question or not, but let me just ask you again, what political affiliation do you think most people in leadership positions and that work in, whether it's Facebook or Google or Twitter, are they right-wing extremists? Are they conservative? Are they liberal? Are they radical leftists? I mean, what part of the political spectrum do you think they fall on?
Perhaps you could explain to me the relevance, and then I could answer the question.
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Sure. Perhaps you could explain to me the relevance of political affiliations of individual employees.
Well, I will say, just listening to testimony here, it seems like the big concern here is about right-wing extremism, which I completely condemn, or right-wing misinformation. So again, I would just argue, when you take a look at what Mark Zuckerberg has done through his Center for Tech and Civic Life, a couple $100 million spent, pretty well took over the election system, I think in violation of Wisconsin law, of Green Bay and 3 or 4 other cities. It doesn't seem to me that the impact or the intent of their manipulation of data would tend to favor conservative groups or conservative thought. It seemed to make more sense that they would tend more to push a liberal ideology.
Well, as other experts have testified, the main issue for most of these companies tends to be profit. And profit is usually going to be built around engagement. Engagement is usually going to be built around outrage, misinformation, half-truths, things that provoke people into thinking that they are under attack, that they are being victimized.
Okay, we heard that in testimony. Let me ask you, have you heard of the work of Dr. Robert Epstein?
I'm not sure.
So I saw somebody shake their head. Is that Mr. Persili?
Yeah, I am familiar with it, yes.
You're familiar with it?
Yes.
Can you summarize it, or should I summarize it for you?
Whichever you prefer, but yes, that he makes the argument that the platforms favored the Democrats in.
Well, he makes the argument that through manipulation of search, Google, as it ramps up toward elections, starts manipulating the search to push users of Google into the type of information that is going to tend to have you vote or decide to vote for a Democrat, delivering, according to him, millions of votes to Hillary Clinton, millions of votes to congressional Democrats in elections in 2018.
Yes, that is what he says.
Okay. I think the point I'm trying to make here is I think manipulation is potentially going to swing both ways. And who is going to be the arbiters of truth? You know, Professor Franks, you said that the reckless endangerment of democracy. Now, I would happen to think that if one of these platforms is utilizing their awesome power of manipulating search to turn votes toward one political party versus the other, if one of these tech giants spends hundreds of millions of dollars to turn out voters in Democrat-leaning areas and regions, that certainly impacts our democracy. You know, I'll give you another example in terms of Facebook. I provided a forum for people who were vaccine injured to just tell their story. Following that, there were about 2,000 people involved in groups supporting each other. Some of these women had such severe vibrations from the vaccine injuries, they committed suicide. So this Facebook group was a support group. It was literally helping people prevent suicides. Within a week, their group grew from 2,000 to 5,000 people, at which point Facebook dismantled the groups, and these individuals who are counseling and helping prevent suicides lost contact with the people who were suicidal. So who is going to regulate this? How is free speech different when it's on a platform versus when it's just spoken in the town hall?
Well, I would suggest...
Who is going to be the unbiased arbiter of truth? I don't think it exists. Now, I'm certainly questioning the Section 230 liability protections when you have these platforms acting as publishers, which is what they are doing when they censor primarily conservative thought. I've been censored myself repeatedly. So again, I'm just pushing back and challenging the fact that this is, something that is fomenting right-wing conspiracies and highly advantageous to the conservative movement. I would say, if anything, it's more likely it's from a political realm, advantaging left-wing ideology. But again, I'll come right back to, we have a Constitution that protects free speech. Who is going to regulate that fairly in an unbiased fashion? It's just not possible. And along the way, we're violating people's constitutional rights. Anybody want to just take a stab at that one?
I would be happy to respond to that. That yes, we do have a First Amendment. We do have a right to free speech, but we also know, of course, that private companies are not obligated under the First Amendment to take all comers. They are allowed to make their own decisions about what is considered to be high quality or low quality content. They can make any number of decisions, and I think we would applaud them in many cases to make those decisions. As we were talking about just before in terms of non-consensual pornography, I, for one, am very happy that Facebook has made the decision to say that that is not welcome on their platform. When it comes to the questions of conservative versus liberal bias, this is not a preconceived notion that I am suggesting here. This is not about intuitions or impressions, although I know that those can go in many different directions. This is about what the data actually suggests. The data actually do indicate that right-wing content is more amplified on these social media platforms than left-wing content, and that right-wing content is more disproportionately associated with real-world violence. Not hurt feelings, not people being upset, but in fact actual violence, actual armed insurrections, actual notions of terrorism and anarchy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Senator Ossoff, you are recognized for your questions.
Thank you.